There's one thing that is commonly missed when it comes to neck weakness. And on this week's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast, we want to discuss what that is. We're going to cue our introduction and dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health podcast, brought to you by Muscle Activation Schaumburg and Exercise for Life Studios, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset. And the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. We're your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And today we're talking about the neck and specifically neck weakness. Now, neck weakness can present itself in a number of ways. It can present itself symptomatically in terms of the neck feeling tight or achy or stiff or painful, or it can literally feel like, wow, I'm having difficulty holding up my head. I'm having difficulty holding my head in the posture that I want to have it in the positions I want to have it in. Wow, I feel like my neck gets really fatigued throughout the day. So all those are signs and symptoms that there may be some neck weakness going on. But when it comes to helping to resolve that, when it comes to getting the neck stronger, there are some major things, and one thing in particular that is missed when trying to strengthen the neck, and that is what we want to talk with you about today.
That's right. I think a lot of times when we have some type of neck symptom like a discomfort or tightness or weakness in the neck, we oftentimes think it's like, oh my goodness, this is something I can't approach by myself. It's a mystical, hands-off area. But actually, there's a lot that can be done to start strengthening this area, make it function better, make it stronger. And we want to break down how we think about working through the neck because it is an area that can be sensitive. But it is an area that is just like the rest of your body where it's a lot of joints and it's a lot of muscles. And if we can optimize all of that, then your neck seems to feel and function a lot better.
Absolutely. You know, one thing that you just brought up, Julie, that a lot of times goes overlooked when it comes to the neck is that it's filled with muscles. There are a ton of muscles that help to control and stabilize and move your neck. And those muscles need to be strengthened just like all the other muscles in your body. You know, we talk often about like the muscles of the feet and how those are often overlooked when it comes to thinking about, all right, what areas of my body am I going to strengthen? The neck is another one of those areas. We don't often think, oh, I need to like really strengthen my neck unless we notice that our neck is particularly weak. And at that point, it's something that's been going on for quite some time. It's not something that has been, you know, the weakness has been developing for the last week or two, even the last month or two. It's something that's been going on for years, okay? And so the name of the game is to try to get ahead of it before you notice it. You try to start strengthening your neck before you're thinking, oh, why do I need to strengthen my neck? Or thinking, oh, I need to strengthen my neck, right? So it's about doing that preventative stuff, just that kind of little dosages, little stimulus for those neck muscles that can go a long way, long way. Because unlike your feet, your neck isn't holding up the entire weight of your body, right? So yes, while your neck does need to be strong, it doesn't need to be like football player strong. It doesn't need to be like wrestler strong, okay? Now, if you are playing football, if you are wrestling, that's a different conversation, right? But for everybody else whose primary function of their neck is to just kind of hold up their head, well then yes, it does need some strength, but the amount of kind of focus and attention that you need to give it relative to other areas of your body, it's going to be less, but it's not going to be none. And that's the thing. It's not going to be none. It's still going to be something. But we need to understand some key principles about the neck and about the neck muscles in order to be able to strengthen it effectively.
That's right. And if you are having neck symptoms, neck discomfort or tightness or weakness, whatever the symptom is that you're experiencing, it is actually, I've never seen a client come in with a neck symptom that doesn't have this next thing going on. And let me explain this to you. So in our body, muscles exist because they cross joints. So that means they attach one part of the body to another part of the body. So in the neck, there's only 3 options for muscle attachments. There is the muscles can attach to like your skull, like your noggin, and attach into your neck. Your neck muscles can also go from a level of your neck to another level of your neck. Like maybe it's up in the upper part of your neck and then it goes to the lower part of your neck. So that's number 2. And number 3 is going to be muscles that attach somewhere in your neck and then go down into not your neck. So your shoulder blades or your thorax. So if you think like your rib cage, like this upper core area, and your shoulder blades. And so there's really only 3 options. And if you're having some kind of neck discomfort rooted in weakness, which if you have neck discomfort, chances are you have a lot of neck weakness, there is one of these that you can dive into easily without even ever having to think, what is the intricate neck exercise that I must do? And that is number 3, which is the muscles that connect from your neck into your shoulder blade or your thorax. So it's the muscles that go from your neck to not your neck. That is probably the best place to start because it's also the foundation of your neck. It's like the muscles that keep your neck controlled on top of like your shoulders, on top of your body, really. So think about starting to focus on strengthening the muscles that connect your neck onto your body.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're thinking about it, I was thinking about 3 different levels. Like you have the muscles that keep your neck on your body, you have your muscles that keep your neck together, and you have your muscles that keep your head on your neck. And so if you think about it like that, what we're suggesting is if you start with muscles that connect your neck to your body, that's going to allow the other groups of muscles, the ones that keep the neck together and the ones that keep your head on your neck, to feel and function better, to have a better opportunity to display their strength and to have a solid foundation to pull off of. And you brought up something interesting, Julie, of like you've never seen it not be the case that there's some kind of muscle issue going on, either in one of those 3 areas when there's a neck symptom. And to just take it one step further, I've never seen it not be the case that 3rd level, or what we'll call that foundational level, the 3rd area that Julie brought up, the muscles that connect the neck to the body and also the neck to the shoulder blade. I've never seen it not be the case that there is some weakness or issue or dysfunction or something going on with those muscles when there's been a neck issue. Like 100% across the board for over 14 years now, every single time somebody has had some kind of symptom related with their neck happening, there has always been some kind of weakness or dysfunction or some kind of strength issue with those muscles that keep the neck on the body, attach the neck to the body, attach the neck to the shoulder blade, all of those things. And so because of that, what you're saying, Julie, as far as like, hey, if we at least start with focusing on this area, in my experience, there is a really good chance of seeing some significant improvement of what you may be experiencing symptom-wise, simply by getting this one level stronger, that foundational level of muscles that connect the neck to the rest of the body.
That's right, Charlie. And a couple things here. The great part about starting with the muscles that connect the neck to your body is, again, we're not like twisting our neck in weird ways or bending this way or that way. You're going to be strengthening, we'll talk about these motions, you're going to be strengthening your shoulders and your thorax, like your core area. And again, every time we see people get an area that is symptomatic stronger, they're always doing better. No one has ever been like, yeah, I really regret, getting my shoulders stronger for my neck pain. It's always been like, maybe it didn't solve it all 100%, but it's loads better because now the area is stronger. It's more connected to your body, meaning like you're able to manage that area better. You're able to, your brain is like, oh yeah, we can do that motion in the shoulder because I've strengthened it 1,000 million times or weekly, however feels more approachable to you. But, I regularly challenge and strengthen and condition these muscles to handle holding my head on straight, right? And so when we think about starting to address neck weakness, start with the shoulders and the thorax, because again, you're not going to be having to learn any weird neck moves or funky things like that, or I guess intimidating for a lot of people, but you're going to be practicing strengthening through the shoulders because they feed directly into your neck, and you're going to be practicing strengthening through your core and your thorax. I say the thorax part, I would just say core if it was me and Charlie talking, but for some reason when the spine gets up close to the neck, then it feels like core is like our tummy, but core and thorax, same thing. It's those muscles that control your spine that I guess are not your neck, right? So it's all those muscles, the muscles that control your rib cage, which is right where the neck connects right into. So we're thinking about strengthening almost the foundation when it comes to starting to strengthen the neck.
Yeah, just another perspective on that comment that you made of like, I've never seen it be the case where like getting stronger leads to worse results. I've also never seen it be the case where people are like, oh, life would just be better if I was weaker. Like if I like my body would just feel and function better if I wasn't as strong. If I was weaker, things would be better, right? Like that's really never ever been the case. So across the board, getting stronger leads to better results, all right? But how you go about doing it matters. And so what we're going to discuss with you now is the things that you need to be focusing on with, the key areas that we're talking about when it comes to building your strength, because there's essentially 4 motions that we want to talk about from a core trunk perspective and 4 motions that we want to talk about from a shoulder blade perspective. And if you can implement strengthening each of those 4 for those 2 areas, so these 8 motions that we're going to cover, if you can implement strengthening those on a regular basis, that can lead to big changes, so long as you are making sure that how you're doing it and what you're doing is still appropriate for your body. And we're going to talk about a way to greatly increase the chance to make sure that happens for you. But first, let's get into these kind of 4 core motions that are going to be instrumental to helping make sure that your neck feels and functions better.
Awesome. Now, if you are ready and excited to hear these 8 motions, great. But I need you to wait until the very end. Like, you got to listen all the way to the end.
Whole
because
thing.
What Charlie was saying we're going to give you some, we call it the what's. Like, what exercise should I do? Should I do, a dumbbell curl or clamshells? That's the what. But what's really important that you apply to these what's, these 8 movements, is the how. And at the end, we're going to talk to you about the how, because this is the hands down number 1 most missed thing that once you learn the how, you need to apply it to all of your exercises and your workouts, especially if you're hoping to make strength changes with limited and minimal negative side effects. Okay, so first, let's talk about the core motions that you need to be strengthening and practicing on a regular basis, meaning you do them regularly, weekly, bi-weekly, whatever it is. So the first thing is flexion and extension. So if you think about flexing your body forward, that would be like a slouched position or a crunched position. You need to strengthen that motion. And you also need to strengthen the opposite motion to that, which is extension. So you're thinking about like arching your back, or like if you were on all fours, it'd make your back kind of sag in the middle. So we're thinking flexion and extension. So those are going to be the first 2 core motions. And I put them together because if you think about them, they're kind of opposite, but you have to orient your body differently to challenge each. So a really good option, just as an example, for flexion would be the crunch, and a really good example for spinal extension is maybe tummy down on a ball or tummy down on the floor, and you slowly extend your spine to squeeze the back side of your back.
Exactly. So the flexion exercises are going to be keying in on the muscles that are on the front side of your trunk. The extension exercises are going to be keying in on the muscles that are on the back side of your trunk. The next motion is going to be trunk rotation. You're going to do a trunk rotation to the right and trunk rotation to the left. Okay. There are different machines that you can use to do this. You can do it, with a cable where you're standing and twisting. You can do it with a cable where you're seated and twisting. A lot of times people will do like seated twists or whatever with a dumbbell. Yes, it's doing the trunk rotation motion, but it's not as much of a trunk rotation challenge as you may be led to believe. And so usually when it comes to actually strengthening the motion of trunk rotation and the muscles that will rotate you as you are performing trunk rotation, it's going to be more effective to do it with like a band or a cable or with a specific like trunk rotation machine, whether it's one where you're seated and you are twisting your bottom half, or you're seated twisting your top half, or maybe you're kneeling twisting your bottom half. Those are all options that you may see in the gym, and then oftentimes the bands and cable options are going to be more appropriate for home. So those are different things to think about. Again, with each of these exercises, really trying to lock in on squeezing the muscles that you're trying to work, not just mindlessly going through the motions or mindlessly flinging, but really trying to make that mind-muscle connection and utilize that squeeze to then create the motion of trunk rotation.
That's right. Now, the fourth exercise for your core that needs to be strengthened to build that neck foundation is your side bending motion. So if you think about, we did flexion, we did extension, we did rotation, but now we're doing this lateral side bending motion. And this is going to really target the muscles that live on the side of your core. So some really great options for this is standing with your feet really wide with a dumbbell only in one hand, and then you're kind of challenging your core muscles that are on the opposite side of the dumbbell hand. Another one is if you've ever seen like one of those slanted bench machine things, we call it like the 45-degree back extension machine. You can orient yourself on the side of that and be able to bend over and then recover back to neutral. So those are really great options when you're trying to, again, focus in on those side bend muscles. And when you're working them, one tip I have is if you kind of put your hand right on your waist, you'll feel those muscles really squeeze underneath your hand. That's a good way to kind of get your brain focused in on those side benders.
Awesome. All right, so those are the 4 key motions that you want to make sure that you're strengthening for your trunk. Again, we have flexion, which is going forward, extension, going back. We have rotation, which is going to be twisting, and then side bend, which is going to be moving your trunk side to side, okay? Now we're taking it to the shoulder blades as well, and there is a direct relationship between the trunk and how strong and how well functioning the muscles of the trunk are, and the shoulder blade, how strong those muscles are, and how well functioning those muscles are, okay? And so making sure that you're not just hitting one of these areas, but making sure you're hitting both the areas, the trunk motions and the shoulder blade motions, is going to be really important. So the first really easy one for people to understand when it comes to shoulder blade motion is what's called upward rotation, or most people call it shrugging. All right, just kind of like bringing your shoulder up towards your ear. Okay, a lot of people are familiar with their upper traps and the shrugging motion, kind of challenging their upper traps. And so there's a bunch of really simple, straightforward ways to challenge this motion. You can hold a dumbbell and shrug. You can use a cable. You can use a band and shrug. There are more complex ways you can use, but for the sake of simplicity, it's just like if all you're trying to do is strengthen this motion, just keep it really simple. Grab a dumbbell, use a cable, use a band, and just shrug. Again, kind of nice and slowly, kind of connecting with that upper trap area and just feeling those muscles squeeze as you bring your shoulders up towards your ears.
That's right. So that would be our upward rotation. You need something. A great place to start would be just using the weight of your arm and practicing the shrug. Because we stand up in gravity, gravity is pulling your arms down already, so you can practice that. But then if you do want to add something to it, again, you need something that's like pulling you down. That's why we said like a dumbbell, and Charlie said like a cable. Make sure the cable's like pulling your arm down so you're shrugging against the resistance. So in opposite of that, there's another motion called downward rotation. So we just did upward rotation, now we're thinking downward rotation. Downward rotation is the motion that we think is the superior motion of the shoulders, and we should all be in downward rotation all the time, which actually leads to more neck and shoulder issues than you would imagine. So if you think about how your shoulders should be, everyone's like, well, they should be back and down, right? That is downward rotation. So if you think about having your shoulders in neutral, and then squeezing the muscles that connect to your shoulder blades, and think about just sliding them straight down, almost like you're going towards your hip bones. When you do this, it's a great place to start with nothing. But if you want to add some more, and this actually is really helpful for a lot of people to have a little resistance with this, because I think we spend a lot of time trying to hold our shoulders back and down, and it does nothing for our neck, is to actually add a little bit of resistance on this one. A great way to do it is if you have access to a cable machine or a pull down machine or bands, and you fix it like above your head and you put your arms there, the higher up your arms can be, and then you can pull down with it. And honestly, this one can feel a little bit weird if you keep your arms straight. So sometimes I just have my clients bring their arms to I'm doing it on YouTube. So if you're listening on the podcast, like you're in like a fight position, right? Your hands, your elbows are bent and your hands are right in front of your armpits. And then let the dumbbell or the weight, not the dumbbell, let the cable or the resistance band kind of pull your arms and shoulders up, but make sure they stay as a unit, and then you pull down. So if you're not watching on YouTube, I'm trying to explain this as well as I can. But anyways, you want that resistance like kind of pulling you up, and then you gently pull down. These muscles, as much as we think about, I always try to keep my shoulders down, they are pretty deconditioned and weak because we rarely challenge them. You're also going to lastly see this motion in the pull down motion. So if you're a regular gym person and you're not doing pull downs, make sure you add those into your routine.
Yeah, all right, so that's the first and the second motion. We have upward rotation and downward rotation. Now, the last two motions motions, well, actually, let me say this. The third motion is going to be called retraction. And retraction is going to be pulling those shoulder blades back. Now, an exercise that incorporates this is going to be like a seated row, or, like a single arm dumbbell row. There are a bunch of different ways that you can go about doing this, with bands, cables, again, doing some kind of seated row, even like using a dumbbell, lying face down, just kind of practicing pulling your shoulder blade back. But the idea is you want to have something that is positioned in front of you that is trying to pull your arms forward, and you're trying to pull your arms back. And as you pull your arms back, you want to make sure that you are emphasizing pulling your shoulder blades back, okay? And if coordinating the two feels like too much, if it feels like too much trying to pull both your arms and your shoulder blades back, then let the arms go, and, let them be out in front of you, and just focus on pulling your shoulder blades back, squeezing the muscles between your shoulder blades, and then letting them come forward, and then pulling them back again. And that will help to work those shoulder blade retractors and that retraction motion.
That's right. And the fourth motion is going to be opposite of retraction, and we call it the technical word of protraction. A lot of us think of this as like the shoulders forward motion. So it's not like you're moving your arms forward. You could, but it's like if your arms are resting right by your side and you just kind of push your shoulders straight forward into what looks like terrible shoulder posture, that's protraction. Many people are very weak in protraction because we spend so much time trying to focus on the shoulders back. Anyways, the way you would challenge this is first, you could try it just, with your body weight. You're squeezing forward and returning to neutral. Squeezing forward and returning to neutral. Another way you could do this, if you have access to like some bands or a cable, is that you can put your arm straight in front of you, almost like a fisted hand right in front of your shoulder. You want it to be at the same level, so it's not like low or high. It's like straight in front of your shoulder, and then hold it in your hand and let the band run along your arm and pull back. So it's almost like if your band is kind of pulling your shoulder back, and then you're trying to do almost like a punching motion forward, but just with the shoulder. You're not trying to bend the elbow on this.
Yeah, working at the top of the push-up position can also be helpful, whether it's done on your feet or knees, but you just kind of get to that top of a push-up position with your elbows straight, and then you can just kind of push your shoulder blades forward and almost think about on the back side trying to spread your shoulder blades as far apart as they can go as you are pulling them forward through the muscles on the front side. So those are the four core motions that we talked about: flexion, extension, rotation, and side bend. And then the four shoulder blade motions were upward and downward rotation, retraction, and protraction. And as you start focusing on adding in exercises to challenge each of those motions, not only will those areas get stronger, but areas where you have neck muscles that are directly connecting to and directly influenced by the different muscles that you are working with those exercises, that will help to build that stronger foundation for your neck muscles, which, like we said, we have never seen it be the case that when there is a neck symptom, there's not also weakness in the shoulder blade trunk area with those different motions that we just went through. So getting those muscles stronger, getting those muscles functioning better can go a long ways to helping your neck feel and function better as well.
That's right. Now we have to jump into the how. This is what I told you. You have to hang on to this podcast until we get to this part, because if you're new here, especially if you're new here, you've not heard the 4 Exercise for Life principles. Now, we use these principles for all exercises to make sure that the effects of your exercise are as positive and reinforcing and as functional as possible, rather than those normal side effects of exercise that you get sore and achy and we pass them off as normal. So there's 4 of them. We want you to apply these 4 principles to all 8 of these exercises. The first one is that you have to use your full but pain-free, symptom-free range of motion. So that means that you're using as much motion as you can do in each of these, but you need to exclude any motion that is painful, zingy, has tightness, tension, pulling, clicking, funkiness, anything that is more than just, I feel muscles, my muscles feel challenged, I feel a movement, right? Anything that's more than that, you want to leave out, and you want to just keep your full pain-free, symptom-free range of motion for your working range of motion.
Exactly. The next one is going to be to control your moving and non-moving segments. So what this means is before you do an exercise, establish which parts of your body you're going to have moving and which parts of your body you're not going to move. And then make sure you are adhering to that the entire time you're doing the exercise. So for example, if you are doing a crunch exercise and you're going to keep your pelvis and your legs still and you're just going to crunch through your core, make sure that it remains the case the entire time you're doing the exercise. Don't let your pelvis move, don't let your legs move. Keep those locked in place and just focus on moving through your trunk. It will help to make the exercise way more specific for you.
That's right. And exercise for life principle number 3 is going to be move really slowly. In fact, most people, once they hear this and they do it with us, especially with our programs that people will do with us online, is they're like, wow, I'm literally the slowest one at the gym. Reason being is that slowness demands control. And the more control you are in, the more your muscles are having to work, which is really the exact reason why you're doing exercises, is to challenge the muscle tissue. So make sure you're moving nice and slow. It'll make sure that your muscles are as highlighted as possible, but it will also make sure that at your ends of motion that you're not violating any barriers that your body has set up, especially if you are struggling with some neck pain. We want to know, hey, do I need to stop early? Do I need to end early? What's going on with that? So make sure you're moving nice and slow.
And finally, exercise for life principle number 4 is going to be to focus on squeezing your muscles. This is something that we brought up a few other times throughout this podcast. But the idea being is while you're doing the exercise, you do not want to be thinking about the weight in your hand. You do not want to be thinking about the music, the reps, anything like that. The only thing you want to be focused on is making that mind-muscle connection and squeezing the muscles that you're trying to work, really intensifying the contraction and really feeling your muscles squeeze the entire time you're doing the exercise. Not only will this help to make the exercise safer for you, but it will actually help you to get better results in terms of building muscle and building strength while you're doing the exercise, because it is going to get more signal from your brain and nervous system to the muscles that you're trying to work, which is the driver behind the strength and muscle building changes that you are looking to make with your exercise.
Now, if you're doing all this and you're adding it in and you still feel like there's some sort of dysfunction happening in your neck, I highly recommend that you find your local muscle activation technique specialist. A lot of times we have inhibition and muscle function issues going on in our shoulders and our trunk and in our neck that's causing excessive tightness or that weakness or whatever symptoms you're experiencing. And the higher we get your muscles functioning, the better your joints and the better the rest of your body is going to feel. So definitely find your local MAT practitioner. If you're in the Chicagoland area, definitely get on our schedule. We'd love to see you and help you out. But muscle activation technique specialists are trained to do a function assessment on the neck, the shoulders, the core, and all the other joints. But if you are struggling with neck issues and weakness, definitely go find your muscle activation technique specialist so that they can figure out where exactly you're struggling with muscle inhibition. And those areas will really benefit from some MAT as you're adding in strength work.
For sure. So if you're wanting to experience muscle activation techniques for yourself and you're in the Chicagoland area or willing to travel to the Chicagoland area, that is our specialty here at Muscle Activation Schaumburg. All you have to do to see our availability and get on our schedule is go to www.matschaumburg.com. On our website, we have a big green button that says Get Started. You can click that and you can get yourself scheduled for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. And if you'd like our guidance, implementing the 4 Exercise for Life principles into all of your workouts so you can help to build the strength of your core, of your shoulders, and throughout the rest of your body, not only to help support your neck, but to make sure that the rest of your body is as strong as you can be with as minimal of the common issues that most people experience when they're exercising, including achiness, tightness, soreness, pain, injuries, everything like that. You want to exclude everything of those things. You want to only focus on getting the positive benefits, increased strength, increased function, increased health. It's exactly what we teach you to do within the Exercise for Life membership. Right now, you can get your first 30 days to the membership for free by going to www.exerciseforlifestudios.com. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know who's been feeling like their neck is just getting weaker and there's nothing that they've been able to do to successfully help it feel stronger? Share this episode with them so they can understand one thing that is often missed when it comes to strengthening the neck and what they can do about it. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to us and leave us a rating and review. Not only does it help people find our podcast when they're looking for information on exercise, it also helps them find our podcast when they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us a 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.